you want access to this podcast earlier than any other viewer, consider becoming a channel member. All tiers get access to this podcast earlier than people who are not channel members, and it does help out this channel a lot. So if you do want to get all of the news updates, discussions, and market information for Flesh and Blood before anybody else, please make sure to become a channel member today. This podcast is also sponsored by Fyendal's Collection. Fyendal's Collection is a collection database website dedicated to showing you the market analytics of all things Flesh and Blood. Looking to track an entire master set? Fyendal's Collection has you covered. It's as easy as creating a collection in their collection tab and choosing which set you'd like to see in all of its glory. There's even an option to only add one of each equipment and cold foil, which really excites my set collecting heart. As a free user, you can upload your collection here to have a great look into what you have accomplished so far in Flesh and Blood. But if you wanted to track your collection in the secondary market, becoming a subscriber really ramps up that analytics portion of Fyendal's Collection. For a measly $3 a month, you get to see the gain and loss each of your collections receive, so you can accurately determine the worth of your cardboard, as far as dollars are concerned. Subscribers also get access to the Market Trends and EV Tracking tabs too. Market Trends is a great way for you to see what's hot in the Flesh and Blood market, and may even give you some insight into what you should pick up for your own collection. The EV Tracker tool is another great example of the data that Fyendal's Collection can provide. Tired of wondering if you're going to get hosed if you buy a booster box or even a case? Well, the EV Tracker is constantly updated to show what your estimated value is on each Flesh and Blood sealed product, which is a great thing for sealed collectors or even people who are just looking to get into the single selling business. Again, all of these tools and more are available to you for just $3 a month. But how about a free month's trial of the site before you settle in? By going to the subscription section and choosing a promo code, you can enter my affiliate code ASHTCG, all capitalized and all one word, and you will get a month of Fyendal's Collection subscription service for free. So if you've been looking for a new card collecting database for your master set collections, or even just some small little collections of your favorite pieces of Flesh and Blood, look no further than Fyendal's Collection. Don't forget to use the promo code ASHTCG when subscribing to receive a free month of service. Thank you so much to Fyendal's Collection for sponsoring this channel, and let's get back to the video. Hello, Ashwings, and welcome on in to episode 15 of the Common Language Podcast. That's right, it is time for us to take a little look into the market today. And the reason being is because we're coming into the end of 2024, holidays are coming up, and I actually am going to be releasing a video probably shortly after this podcast comes out for my channel members in regards to a buying guide for the Flesh and Blood TCG. Now, something that I like to also share with podcast stuff is more specifically where to look and how to best kind of view the value of these cards. So, usually when I go into buying things for either myself, right, or for other people, in most cases I'm buying for myself, with the cards that I end up getting, they tend to be just cheaper versions of themselves so that I can put them in decks and play with them, right? I don't care about their condition, their overall value. I simply want to be able to get the cards so that way I can go ahead and put those cards into decks so I can play them at their most efficient state. Now, something that is really, really important that I like to look over is the TCG player market here. Now, what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've separated everything from super rare and majestic into this tab here. And I'm just kind of taking a look at some of the cards that exist within the world of Flesh and Blood that I can get for incredibly cheap. And the reason I say incredibly cheap is because, well, that's just what they are. They're incredibly cheap to get. So, for instance, you take a look at something like Forged for War. This is a card that is very interesting because you pay 2, it's got Go Again, and then it's for Guardians, right? So while Forged for War is in the arena, equipment you control get +1. And then at the beginning of your action phase, destroy Forged for War. So this prepares you to be a little bit more on the defensive side when you're a Guardian, to go into those very, aggressive turns. And so Forged for War, while it'll pretty much just put 3 block on everything that you have, in most cases, it doesn't see play, because it costs you 2, and then you probably don't have anything to swing in with in most cases. But if you're looking for a very defensive build on a hero, Forged for War might be pretty good. And for 10 cents for the unlimited edition, it's not bad. But if we take a look at the first edition rainbow foil for this, it is $82. Now, of course, this is Welcome to Wraith, so let's be a little bit more serious about this. Let's take a look at the unlimited rainbow foil edition of this. Still something that's very attainable to this day, but the unlimited edition rainbow foil goes for 50 cents. So if this card ever becomes incredibly popular in the world of Flesh and Blood, and a defensive Guardian ends up becoming a really insanely powerful thing in the overall Classic Constructed meta, Forged for War is going to be something people might want to pick up. And if it is, well, guess what? You bought a whole bunch of copies for 50 cents, and now you're going to be at a better spot when you purchase even more. You'll see this card was down here, and now it's sold a little bit more. The couple that have been sold, 8 sold here. Looks like 16 of them were sold in October, which is kind of strange to me, more specifically, but even when you take a look at the month range, it's gone down, right? It's from 65 to 61, so it's still right here. There's 21 listings available on here, but most of them are pretty cheap comparatively. So you take a look at all of those, and then let's even just take a look at this, right? Another Welcome to Wraith version here. Unlimited rainbow foil, 27 cents. So 27 cents for a rainbow foil, and mind you, I need to just make this very clear. The rainbow foils are more than likely what you're going to want to buy if you're trying to keep cards for a collection. And the reason being is because if these cards end up getting a reprint, it will be a reprint in a different art. Now, if that art is, or more specifically, if they get a rainbow foil reprint, and if that reprint that's rainbow foil has better art to most, then it might be a big deal. But when you have a situation like this, where this is the first printing of this card, we see that a lot of people tend to focus back on the previous, the very first sets of Flesh and Blood or of Magic the Gathering, and they take a look at these cards and go, wow, like the game was Flesh and Blood will probably be an entirely different game 10 years from now than it is right now. And because of that, these cards are going to be something you're going to want to pick up simply because they will have value, and picking them up for 27 cents a piece, it's not bad. So when you take a look back at this here, again, you have so many Majestics and super rares that you have access to that will just cost you nothing, right? Demolition Protocol from Bright Lights. You might end up seeing Teklevosen be a really, really big name in the game at some point here, and if Demolition Protocol is it, that's going to be a big hit. Right? But again, you want to look at the really, really spicy versions of them. So let's at least take a look at let's see what cold foils we have in regards to these. So no cold foils for these. They're not going to show cold foils here, but if we go to let's just do high and low, because they won't have these here. So cold foil versions, maybe this was not the best way to go about looking at this. Let me see. Maybe there's unlimited edition rainbow foil, or just rainbow foil. So you have some more of these here that will have rainbow foil versions of them, and these rainbow foil versions tend to be the better version, just because they're more sought after, they're more shiny, stuff like that. So for instance, Soul Food is 89 cents rainbow foil, 40 cents here, 63 cents, 84 cents. So you still got a whole bunch of cards that come in for pretty cheap considering their rainbow foil value. So let's take even a look further, about 5 pages deep into this one, and we're still looking at cards that are under $1 for their rainbow foil versions of themselves. Some of these cards are banned currently, but if they are banned, they might see an unban later. Who's to say? And you can also use them in the Living Legend format, which is another thing too. So Fog Down, another card, rainbow foil, $1.43. $1.42 for a Rainbow Foil Jubil Spellblade. Rainbow foils of these Majestics that aren't seeing play right now, but they certainly might see play later. Boltons get a whole bunch of stuff here. Mental Block is a new card from Rosetta that's only 52 cents. There's a lot of cards that you can choose from. And the same goes for, not Fyendal Spring Tunic, but more specifically, if we take a look at cards that are legendary. So if we take a look at some of these legendary cards, and then we change some cold foils and some first edition cold foils, we're going to see that the overall match is going to be pretty good. Now, some of these are in extended art, so it'll be a little bit difficult to show specifically which ones are what. But in these situations, you'll see that Silver Palms, currently a merchant equipment, the only merchant equipment to exist, is going for $9. So if merchants ever become a fun thing that are able to be utilized, having a cold foil is great there. Cold foil Diadem of Dream State. We thought this was going to be used for Enigma. It was not, but now it's back to $10. The cold foil of Invoke Soraya, not the Marvel, but just the cold foil, is looking to be about $10. You even have cold foil things like Quiver of Abyssal Depths. If Ranger ends up becoming a big thing, Quiver for $15, pretty good. Redback Shroud in cold foil, 26. Shriek Razors for 20. You have Eclipse for a legendary chain specialization. So if you end up using an Eclipse in your chain deck for Living Legend, you're going to have a cold foil version of it for pretty cheap. Crown of Seeds even. Starvo just won the calling in Chicago for the Living Legend format, and they use Crown of Seeds. So it's a card to keep an eye on. Meridian Pathway, another piece of equipment made for Enigma, and Enigma utilizes this all the time. $20 for the cold foil. So when you can pick up these cold foils for pretty cheap, obviously these things like Welcome to Wraith, Arcane Rising, and Crucible of War cold foils might not be the key thing here, but everything else, you're probably going to get a pretty good pricing for them. Take a look here. Again, 12-petal Kasaya. This is necessary to play Zen, and 12-petal Kasaya is an extended art version that's going for $27. Zen is a premier deck in the Classic Constructed meta right now, and also a premier deck in the Living Legend format. And to see this card in its extended art version be under $30, that's a steal for me. Something else to keep in mind is Soulbound Resolve, Iron Song Versus, a lot of Warrior stuff, because Warriors are not really like big into the meta right now, but Soulbound Resolve and Iron Song Versus will certainly give you a great, especially if you're playing Bolton. Both of these cards are really, really good, and that's 2 legendary pieces of equipment you can get for $60. That's still less than a Tunic, still less than the Crown of Providence. You have things like Rampart of the Ram's Head, a very good Guardian equipment that, a lot of people are probably playing the Stalagmite currently in Jarl, but Rampart of the Ram's Head is a great way for you to get additional value. You have things like Stonewall Gauntlet, another cheap gold foil, or a cheap cold foil here, under $60. This card ends up becoming something absolutely insane. You're looking at a pretty solid deal. Again, Scowling Fleshbag, Necessary and Brutes, $50 for the cold foil. These are cards that are valuable in their cold foil state. Like $40 for a cold foil Lightning Greaves, $45 for an extended art Warband of Bologna, $50 for cold foil Monarch. You have $62 for cold foils Tiger Stripe Shuko. Frickin' $54 for cold foil Cornet. You have extended art Empyrean Rapture for under $50. Diet Carapace is a little expensive because Viscerai is currently a pretty big deal as far as the cold foil goes there, but Diet Carapace is even doing really well. Apex Bonebreaker, like a lot of these now going into like the hundreds, right? Like you're up there. Now, what's weird is that this 12-petal Kasaya, and this might just be the situation, this 12-petal Kasaya in cold foil is going for $56. But the extended art Kasaya is going for $30. So I'm only led to believe that there's some issue with TCG player on this one, because this card at $60 makes a lot more sense. But the fact that it was at significantly less in the other area is much different. So I'm gonna actually let's go ahead and just take a look at that together as a group, since we're just hanging out, we're just vibing, because I know there's not an extended art rainbow foil of the 12 petal. So let me just make sure this is the case. Yep, near mint cold foil, $27 for the extended art Part the Mistveil version. So currently, according to TCG Player, you can get the extended art in near mint cold foil for $30. And then you can get the regular cold foil for $60. Now, be aware, there is no regular cold foil. There's no regular cold foil. There's only an extended art cold foil for 12 petal Kasaya. So this listing is not accurate. But this listing might be, right? Because this is the extended art of 12 petal Kasaya. So something to look out for, obviously, if you're shopping. But in regards to that, like, what I wanted to do is I took like the first 2 pages of cards from the Majestics, not in rainbow foil, but in just their regular printings. I put them in a cart. 104 cards, because I got a play set of everything. 104 cards for $35. These are all Majestics that are of different classes and different talents that all very well could see a spike in price in the future. Now, of course, that's all speculation. These cards could very well stay at this price, but even still, if this is the lowest they're going to go, then you're not going to need to worry about the loss of value for any of these cards. You're not going to need to worry about whether, oh man, I can't believe I spent 5 cents on that Diabolic Ultimatum. Like, God, it's just like the worst version it could possibly be. Like, Diabolic Ultimatum might not be good right now, but the thing with a lot of these cards is that they end up having a ton of value in the future. That's what I like about Flesh and Blood, is that I can take a look at a hero that is currently not performing very well in the competitive pro scene, and I can go, I'm going to buy every Majestic and every Legendary and every like key card that this hero uses in their class, even if it's cards that are not staples for that class, and I'm going to buy them. And then when I buy them, I at least know that I can have them. And I can also look at other things too. So for instance, Bolton is a pretty big deal, right? Bolton is normally the card that, or the hero that players don't like to play into a competitive scene, right? And so when you take a look at something like Luminous Ascension, the specialization for Bolton, you can get an extended art, lightly played first ed rainbow foil version of this for $65. Now that's a lot to play in the deck, but Bolton mains will love this card. And more importantly, it is a rare card to find in first ed Monarch. So it's the only place you can get an extended art Luminous Ascension. So just saying, this is one of those cards where if you were playing any other hero, this would probably be more expensive. Take a look at something that's even more relevant right now, actually, would probably be the Gone in a Flash. Gone in a Flash extended art is used in Acilio and in Aurora. This extended art version is $90. Now, it's not a specialization, so it can be used in multiple heroes, whereas this is a specialization and can only be used in Bolton, but you'll see significantly different price range. So if you're trying to buy things for collections, or you're just trying to like get ahead of the market, like $65 is a lot to me, but to you, you might be sitting there going, man, when the time comes and Bolton gets enough support to where he's topping every single event he's in, these Luminous Ascensions are gonna skyrocket in price. And if that's the case, you'll already have quite a few that you can just go, yeah, no, I have these available here. I can sell them for you at the cost that you're willing to buy them at. So there's always value in doing that. But I know that the market's tricky. So if you're new to the game and you don't know anything about the market and you're not sure how to work it, right? I just say start by buying a bunch of those really cheap Majestics and super rares and just buy 2 playsets of them, right? You can buy 1 playset in rainbow foil and 1 playset in non-foil. That way you have a playset that you can sell or keep until the right time, and you have another playset that you can play with if you happen to want to play those cards in your deck. Because if the cards end up becoming something that you really enjoy, and the hero is the premier hero for you to get into Classic Constructed or Blitz or whatever it might be, you're going to want to have a playset of those cards when you can buy them for cheap. So that way you don't have to worry about buying them at their expensive rates when the rest of the community decide to hop on that train. Something to keep in mind is something like the dusts, right? For Dromai. There's a Draconic Illusionist card that comes out in the expansion slot for the past 4-5 sets. The past like 5 some sets, even in Dynasty, we had some come out. And there was a new one every single time. And Dromai has not been in the Classic Constructed meta for it's been months now. But she's still getting cards printed for a Draconic Illusionist in the expansion slots of these new sets. And that is hype enough to get people to hop online and go, I need to buy versions of these dusts, because there would be no reason for them to be printing them in the expansion slots if they weren't going to eventually see play. And it might not be for another year, but I think the chances are it's probably going to be sooner than later, considering we're due to see Enigma maybe leave the platform sometime soon here. And then we'll also probably see Zen leave too in the Classic Constructed meta. So I think what it comes down to is like, do you want to play a hero that's currently hype, that's going to cost you like 2 times, maybe even 3 times the cost of what the cards cost you? Or do you want to just build up a collection and then be ready for when that hero is going to get the immediate support they need, and then you can just worry about buying a few cards and say, all right, cool, like now I can just spend all that time building up another hero. For instance, when I saw Warcry of Bologna come out and be spoiled for the Hunted, I got really excited and I bought everything I needed for Bolton. Everything. I bought all the legendaries I needed. I bought all the Majestics I needed. I even bought the structure deck, so I made sure I had all the structure deck stuff there too. And now I'm set, right? And it didn't cost me anywhere near as much as it would cost any other hero to build. Like, it was insane. I have nearly everything already as far as a generic would need. Now, if I'm just looking for cards and I'm like, yep, okay, that'll be what I'm looking for, you just keep it going. So I'm incredibly excited to see the overall power of Bolton when I get it. And it's more important that these cards are going to see play in the future, because once gem packs start coming out, we're going to see more and more people just wanting to play what they want at the armories instead of trying to spike. And that is the best part, is that you don't have to worry about, heroes not making specific matchups correct, or like certain things. Like, I play New, a very powerful assassin right now, and even still, I found out just recently in our most recent video that it turns out New is not good into Kasai. It's like an unfavored matchup, which I had no idea about. I had no idea that was the case. So there's just those things where, like, sometimes you come across a hero that's just like, people enjoy playing their favorite hero, and they're going to keep playing it over and over and over and over again until it LLs, and then they're going to have to switch and do something else. When Dromai switched and I had to switch, I thought about getting into Prism, because Prism was pretty cheap at the time. She's still pretty cheap to play overall, but I chose not to. And then Enigma came out, and I was like, well, I could probably build Enigma because I already have things like Phantasmal Footsteps. I already got to traverse the universe. I'm in a pretty okay spot, but I didn't want to commit to building Enigma, and now specifically I don't want to build Enigma because she's due to LL sometime soon here. So, it's just one of those things where the meta is always going to be changing, but if you want to stay ahead of it as the market, you want to buy a few copies of these rainbow foil versions of cards, so that way, in case a card becomes incredibly powerful in a deck and starts being in these top 8 lists, you at least have something to sell to recoup your costs, especially when you can buy them for dirt cheap. I mean, most of the rainbow foils that come out of sets like Rosetta and part the Mistveil and even heavy hitters, a lot of these rainbow foils cost nothing because they're just on cards that do not get value right now. Foil 3 Visits, for instance, is a card I have plenty of, and 3 Visits is not run in Enigma. But if it turns out that in the Living Legend format, or if in the future a Mystic Illusionist comes out that makes 3 Visits really good, that card's going to spike in price. So it's all just about checking the market, seeing where things are, and kind of moving forward with that. But I'm always happy to talk about the market strategies with everybody. And, I really want to make sure that it's a constant that is brought up, in that you don't need all the powerful cards in order to play Flesh and Blood, but utilizing tactics like this are at least going to get you quite a bit of good cards. And those good cards you can then keep, put them in a binder, save them for a rainy day, and the second you see a hero pop out that's just like, hey, that hero's for me, you can take a look at the armory, the actual ton of cards that you got in your collection for doing these same strategies, and going, hey, I have 3 non-foil copies of those. I'm going to play those, and then I'm going to maybe sell off 1 of my 6 rainbow foil copies of the card, and then that way I can recoup a little bit of cost, right? Because if you think about it, if you buy 6 rainbow foil cards at 25 cents a piece, the $1.50 before taxes. $1.50. If you in the future sell 1 of those cards for $5, you've made nearly over 3 times the amount that you paid for 6 copies with 1. And that's, it's not market bro value advice, finance bro value advice. That's just math. That's just how the math works. And especially when you get them for cheap. I'm not talking about buying like $50 cards and being like, this $50 card's going to go up to, $300 and you're going to get such an insane amount of value for it. Like, if you can afford $50 and like buy 6 copies of a $50 card, sweet, right? If it does go up in value, that's great, right? Some of these cards will not be reprinted in the same way they were previously. So those cards are going to be ones that you're going to look into for investments, quote unquote. But in most situations, you're probably just going to want to stick with the regular rainbow foils, and then you can sell the rainbow foils in the future, keep 1 for your collection or 2 for your collection, and then you can keep the non-foils for you to play with. So that's my whole thing on the market. I am always happy to talk about this. I know it's not something that I normally speak on, specifically because there's just like a lot when it comes down to collecting that it's hard to do in Flesh and Blood, because you have to wait for heroes to not be powerful, and some cards, until they're banned, are going to be powerful forever. Codex of Frailty being one of those things, right? Codex of Frailty, the non-foil versions of them are going for like $80. So even if you try to get a rainbow foil version of them, or God forbid, the Marvel of that card, those cards are going to be significantly more difficult to find when they're popular. And because it's a card that doesn't seem to be getting a ban anytime soon, it's probably just going to continue to exist at that price, if not continue to go up. But if it gets a reprint that most people will enjoy a little bit better, the Marvels and the rainbow foils will have significant value in their original forms, but the non-foil probably won't, and the non-foil will probably just be reprinted in a new way with a new set. Sorry, my ear itches like nobody's business, so you guys are just going to get to deal with that. But yeah, so that's enough of me yapping. Hopefully this was a great episode for you to turn into. I know this is, hopefully it's an eye opener, right? Because I think a lot of people don't realize how much Flesh and Blood exists on the market that is under $5. And so even if you're just like, yeah, I just kind of get bulk from now and again, and I open up some packs or whatever, like if you could get 2/3 of the Majestics and Legendaries in Flesh and Blood for the amount you pay for a box, I think that's probably a pretty good trade. So something to keep in mind, especially when we're talking about things like those dusts, right? Draconic Illusionist is going to be something that will eventually come back. And when it does, you take a look at those dusts. Those dusts, if you buy a whole bunch of them that are rainbow foil for like $1, $2, whenever she comes out, if any of these dusts, any of these dragons specifically, work better than the others, their dusts will more than likely go up. And if they go up, you can sell those dusts. Good to go. The spice will flow, as they say. So thank you guys so much for watching today's episode of the Common Language Podcast. This is the Common Language where I tell you to maybe spend your money wisely if you're getting money for the holidays. But more specifically, just overall, if you're new to the game and you're trying to kind of really get yourself cemented in it, it's a great place to start without having to break the bank. And more importantly, again, you'll set yourself up with cards that are going to have value in the future. Maybe. Right? And even if they don't, right now we're only 5 years into Flesh and Blood. 5 years. Dual lands for Magic the Gathering did not truly spike in price until like 2012. Probably like 20, I already guessed, probably 2015. 2012, 2015 era. That's when they started spiking in price. And now, we take a look at them now and it's like dual lands are like insanely expensive. Not insanely expensive. They're quite affordable compared to other things. But like you take a look at like alpha and beta dual lands, you're like, wow, that's insane. And like some of these cards might not see reprints. Some of these cards are going to never see a reprint in cold foil, right? Cold foil cards, cold foil legendaries are not ever going to be reprinted in cold foil ever again. Cold foil is strictly in the set that they are initially released in. So it's incredibly important to keep that in mind when you're purchasing things like cold foils and extended arts and things like that, because they're not due for a reprint like that, right? They might get a non-foil reprint, but they won't get a super shiny special rare version of a reprint, which is why I suggest going for those cold foils and the extended art rainbow foils and things like that, because those are going to be worth your value tenfold. So thank you guys so much for watching episode 15 of the Common Language Podcast. I appreciate you. And as always, let me know what you feel in the comments down below about the things we talked about today. You can even leave some topics about what we might want to talk about next week. I know this episode, obviously, if you have become a channel member, you'll be getting these channel member episodes a week earlier than everybody else does. But if you're just watching this as the time goes on, right, you've probably already seen our holiday shopping guide, as well as any of our other videos that have come out. But I still appreciate you nonetheless for just being a subscriber and enjoying the content. Let me know what you guys would like to see in regards to the podcast next time. And as always, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I love your faces. Continue having fun in the Flesh and Blood, and I will see all of you beautiful Ashwings in the next episode of the Common Language Podcast.